Alrighty. Yo, what's poppin', y'all? It's your boy, it is Guardy3, and I am joined by the greatest co-host of all time, ladies and gentlemen. It is Mo Betta. Mo, how you
It
doing
was
today?
good. I am doing great. Appreciate everybody else that's turning out for me and Brett on the M1 podcast. Welcome, welcome, and welcome again.
No, absolutely. So, of course, for any first-time viewers or listeners, we always like to start these out in a fairly fun way. We think that there's a lot of NBA players that are completely lost in time and that are underrated. So we like to start off with what we like to call the underrated player of the week, where we try to take an underrated player and get more people to put some eyes on him. So, Mo, how would you like to start out with an underrated player this week?
You know what? I'm going to go with my underrated player this week. It isn't what he did on the court, it's just the way he handled a situation as being part of a team. My underrated player this week is going to be Jason Tatum. There's been a lot of controversy about the rotations in Team USA. A couple of games ago, Jason Tatum didn't play at all. Not only was he on the bench, he got no burn at all. And a lot of people made a big deal about it in Celtics land and maybe in some NBA circles, but I thought Jason Tatum handled it well. He said it was a humbling experience. He's not bitter. I'm sure he would love to be out there playing, but he also realizes that on that team, you're going to see many, many different lineups. And there's going to come a time when Jason Tatum will be part of a closing lineup. So I just think sometimes we talk about their ability a lot. I'm going to go with his mentality and how he handled a situation that some people could have not handled as well. So that's my underrated player this week, Jason Tatum.
Now I can see it. He handled being benched like a champ. He said it was a humbling experience.
Right.
This is a guy who, by all means, could have very easily pouted about it, and it would have been actually justified. This is a guy who just won an NBA title. You can argue, I know people are going to argue Jalen Brown, but this is a guy who very well has an argument for being the best player on the team.
I
So,
think he led them in every statistical category. Correct me if I'm wrong. Points, rebounds, assists, right across the board.
yeah, no, he did. And so, not a lot of people would do all that and then take being benched in stride, but he absolutely did. So, I like that. Like him and Embiid both like took it very well, and I'm
Right.
absolutely here for it.
And
I
on a
love to
side
see it.
note, Brett, let's point out another thing. On a side note, Sixers Nation and Celtics Nation are like, you know what? We're kind of glad they're not playing that many minutes, right? Like you know what I'm saying? Like when you're invested in Joel Embiid, I'm not sure Sixers fans want to see him play too many minutes anyway. They want him healthy and at 100% going into next season. So I think Sixer Nation is not nearly as annoyed as Celtics Nation is about Embiid not getting any run.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about Joel Embiid's fit on the Olympics, and that's a whole different topic. But
No question.
I think my underrated player, is somebody that's been very underrated to me for a while, and he got a lot of hate for joining the Olympics team because I was going to go Olympics too for underrated player. They were wondering, well, why wasn't Paul George an Olympian? There were so many better options than Derek White. But I think Derek White was the absolute best pick for the Olympics, for the spot that they needed. Is someone like Paul George more talented than Derek White? Yeah, absolutely he is. No question. There were better basketball players available than Derek White. But what Derek White does is what every single superstar doesn't want to do. He'll do the dirty work. He's going to dive down on the floor for you. He's going to go for the loose balls. And do you think Paul George is going to do that? Probably not. He's not going to do all the dirty work right now that Derek White is. And he's providing some great value as a point of attack defender and just knocking down catch and shoot threes. So it
Agreed.
was really hated when it first happened. But I got to say, man, they made a great selection in Derek White. And honestly, I'd even argue that it was the best selection that they could have made for that last spot.
I agree with you 100%, partner. Look, I get it. Jaylen Brown is an all-star. I think he made a third team all NBA. He's a terrific player, just won a finals MVP. But when you point out something that's really obvious, they have guys on that squad already who can do what Paul George does. But you could argue they do it better. What they don't have is a lot of dogs that'll get out there and attack the offense, slide his feet, get through screens, fight through screens, and chase after somebody's primary offensive creator all the time, like Derek White does. Derek White and Jrue Holiday do the dirty work that stars don't want to have to do over a sustained period of time. So I can't tell you how valuable he is for Team USA going forward. There will be people who average more points, more assists, more rebounds. He will not put up the most impressive stats, but when you watch Derek White play, Brett, he just makes winning plays. He just finds the way to make his team better on both sides of the ball.
100% agreed. Derek White was somebody I was a big fan of when the Celtics initially made that trade, and obviously it panned out for him. And now Team USA is reaping the benefits of Derek White. And guess what? In the 2028 iteration, he's probably going to be the right choice again. Like, I don't think this is the last time we see Derek White in the Olympics.
Oh, I agree. I think when you already try to project ahead, Derek White is going to be probably one of the returning figures. The same way we can probably both agree this is Jrue Holiday's last Olympic. I'm pretty sure this is his last one. But I think Derek White will be back. I think obviously Anthony Edwards will be back. Jason Tatum will be back. We don't know about Steph or LeBron. I can assume maybe Steph. LeBron, I don't know, but seeing how he's already played over 20 years, I'm not going to say for sure. But I do automatically, if you want to tell me who I know is going to be on the team, barring an injury, absolutely, Derek White will be playing in the 2028 games.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got a surprise for you. Joining us at this time, Mr. Wire to Wire himself, it is Gene Walzak. How you doing, Gene?
What's good, Gene?
I will be quick. I will not stay all night. I do not want to commandeer the show. But I heard y'all talking Olympic basketball, and I've been keeping up with it, and I've been watching every game, and I want to make a couple comments that really just want your opinions on.
All right.
Number one, the maturity level of Jason Tatum versus Joel Embiid is light years different, right? With the way Jason Tatum handled his DNP versus the way Joel Embiid was in the first half. I'm not sure how much of an expert you guys are in body language and in the way he reacted to being on the bench, rolling his eyes, looking disinterested. Someone said something to him at halftime because in the second half, it was different. He's clapping. He was on the bench. That's number one. Number two, the way Joel is playing Olympic basketball is such an awful fit for what Team USA wants to do. With Team USA, it has to be whoever's the hot hand. There's all superstars. They're all great players. You have to have a level of humility to play at an Olympic level successfully. Joel is shown time after time he does not. I do not. I mean, you guys know how big of a Joel Embiid fan I am. You guys know how big of a Sixers fan I am. To go on radio, or first was to media, and say, well, this isn't the same LeBron James. This is not the same LeBron James. This is older LeBron James. He's not prime LeBron. And then to go on a podcast why he's with the Olympic team and say, well, Jason Tatum, of course he wins. He's got a super team. If I go 5 for 20 in a night, we lose by 30. Those two comments show you exactly what the maturity level is of that man, and it is bothersome. It is bothersome, and I wanted your guys' opinion on it because I heard you guys talk about it, and I was trying to get it in the comments, like what I would type and what I would say. But in reality, it had to be words because it is so frustrating to me as a 76ers fan, and even a fan of basketball, to watch a guy who's an awful teammate. He blamed Ben Simmons. He blamed his teammates other than James Harden. He blamed injuries. I am so sick of the excuses. I'm so sick of it being everything else except Joel. What I was wondering was, how does a Milwaukee Bucks fan and a Los Angeles Lakers fan watch this? Am I on my own planet in belief in this?
No,
No, go ahead, Brett. Go ahead.
you can go ahead, Mo.
I think everything you said, Gene, I would echo. Look, I'm not a Sixer fan, but I'm a huge Joel Embiid fan. And he's clearly a bigger superstar than Jason Tatum. In the bigger picture, he's a better player than Jason Tatum. That's not to be questioned. But there is a huge separation in maturity from Joel Embiid and Jason Tatum. You wouldn't know that Joel Embiid is heading towards 30 because he acts like somebody who just hit 2021. He's very immature, not a natural leader, a gifted player, but not a natural leader. Just how he's handling the fact you're playing on a team of superstars. And to your point, Gene, it's about winning the gold and being selfless. It's about completing the mission and winning the gold. Not, I need my shots. I need my opportunities. It's what can I do to help my country, my team win the gold. And it's disappointing to see him come off the way he's come off so far.
Yeah, absolutely. It is frustrating because it was kind of almost, you could see the writing on the wall that he was going to get that next DMP against Sudan. He was even said on ESPN that they need to be longer and athletic. And when it comes to Joel, he's not athletic. South Sudan picked on a lot of him in drop coverage, just running those DHO actions. You see a lot of like Sabonis and the Kings run, just hand off three, run off ball screens, and you can get the clean look because Joel's not going to step up. So
right.
That was just an Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo matchup. So his comments in the podcast did show his maturity level, and I absolutely hated that, and I poked fun at him for it because it was absolutely wild. It just shows that it shows why Tatum's a champion and Embiid isn't. It's not to do with who's better. It's maturity. It's Tatum is willing to step back and do anything to win, even if it means his teammates overshadowing them. Where Joel Embiid just seems like he always wants to be the center of attention. He always has to be the guy. And when you get into a situation like Team USA where you have 10 guys that can be the guy, you need someone like Tatum who's willing to take a step back. And Joel Embiid just hasn't seemed willing to do that.
Isn't this an opportunity for him, though, to make a turn? Because I'm looking at the Sixers and what they could be going into this season. Joel Embiid can be your leading scorer through the regular season. He can carry you through the regular season, he and Paul George. I'm of the belief, and maybe I'm in the minority, in the postseason, the way the games are played and how they shrink and tighten up, I think Tyrese Maxey should be your guy, should be your leader in the postseason. I think he has the ability, the talent, the want to. And if Joel Embiid wants to win a championship, he's got to take a step back. There's nothing wrong with not being a finals MVP if your franchise wins the championship.
Completely agree with you guys. I'll leave on that note. I've enjoyed listening. I'll be listening to the rest of the show. It's just, I truly hope that through this experience, through being around guys like LeBron James, Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, Steve Kerr is the coach, being around Team USA basketball, I hope through this experience he matures and he sees the way winning basketball is played. And what I found very amusing and entertaining was how the difference that their defense played versus South Sudan when Embiid played in the first game, in the trial game, versus the way they played last game in the qualifier. And the last point I'll make, and I'm going to hop out, is they're going to play him versus Puerto Rico. They're going to start him. They're going to try to get him involved early. You will know exactly how his attitude will be in that Puerto Rico game by his first 2 or 3 shots. He's going to, here's the prediction. He's going to demand the ball immediately. He's hand up. Here it goes. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. He's going to take a 7-foot jumper. And whether or not he makes it determines on how his game goes. I do not think he is emotionally intelligent enough to be an NBA champion. And I'm hoping as a Sixers fan that this experience, and you've seen it with players in the past, that when they play with Team USA basketball, They came back an overall better player because they learned winning culture. I'm hoping that happens. I'm going to fade off and listen to you guys. Thank you so much. It's great NBA basketball talk. I appreciate you letting me talk.
Appreciate you, Gene. I couldn't have said it better. I think he covered everything, Brett. I couldn't have said it better. I echo everything he just said. I think you're on mute.
I am on mute.
Hey,
no, I absolutely agree, and I hope that Embiid's able to turn it around in our next game here against Puerto Rico. It just got to understand it all comes down to matchups, and it's funny. I heard ESPN cover it. They were talking about. I think it was Brian Windhorst goes, "Against South Sudan, we need to be long, quick, and agile," and then proceeds to go, "So they might bench Bam Adebayo." Like, you literally just said the opposite. That's our best defender against long, quick, and agile.
Because what is no, to your point, what does Bam do that a lot of bigs can't do? He can play in space. He can switch every position. You can't expect drop coverage because Bam could switch every pick and roll situation. And Anthony Davis could do it pretty damn good too as well. Joel Embiid is not going to come out of the paint. He's not going to challenge that action. So they're going to get, at least South Sudan, the first time, they're going to get whatever shot they want because he's going to play drop coverage. That's what he does. He's a talented guy and he's a good defender, a good rim protector, but he can't play in space. He doesn't have the lateral quickness to play in space.
No, absolutely. So I was thinking about Joel Embiid because it was kind of funny because I was scrolling through TikTok and there was a conversation. It was from Player's Choice, and there was a debate going on if Joel Embiid could be stopped by two defenders. And I want to curious on what you think about this. Veering a little off topic, but these are two drastically different defenders.
Sure.
And apparently both these guys would get smoked by Joel Embiid, according to one. First defender, Lakers Shaquille Prime Shaq.
You're talking about could Prime Shaq guard Joel Embiid?
Yeah, like Lakers Shaq.
No, he can't guard him. He can't guard him. Shaq was a good defender when he really committed, but he was never a great defender. He just wasn't. At his peak, his athletic peak with Orlando, he wasn't a good defender. He was a good shot blocker and a good rim protector. But look, I don't know what argument people are making, but yeah, look, here's the thing. Lakers Shaq, his best defense, Brett, is his offense because you can't guard him. Like if they're on the other end of the floor, he's going to bury Embiid. Embiid's going to be in foul trouble. But I don't think Shaquille O'Neal struggled guarding Rick Smits. He struggled guarding Vlade. He couldn't guard Yao. He's not going to guard Joel Embiid. That actually is a factual statement. Joel Embiid will eat Shaq alive on the other end of the court.
See, we agreed on that one. So, and I think you'll agree with me on this one. And this one was insane to me. This guy, he tried to argue that Joel Embiid would be able to blow by and just completely abuse Hakeem Olajuwon.
Well, he can't blow by him because Olajuwon's quicker and more athletic. So let's start there. But put him on the block. Joel Embiid's a good 40 pounds bigger than Hakeem Olajuwon. So could he be effective on the block? Yeah. I remember, Joel Embiid is going to come at you with almost the kind of power like Shaq, but it's a much more skilled and refined power. Again, if we just look up at the matchup on what Hakeem could do defensively, I think he would have to mix things up. He probably would try to front Joel Embiid. He'd probably try to beat him to his spots. But I think Hakeem would still ultimately, Joel Embiid's going to get his buckets. I think you're talking about a lot of size and a lot of skill. And I think we both have Olajuwon in our top 10 because of his versatility defensively and offensively. But I think even you would have to admit, as great as Hakeem is, that is a lot for him to deal with, giving up that much size and strength.
Yeah, I think it'd be a tough one. I think Hakeem could still handle him, but I think he'd give a lot bigger of a fight than most people would expect.
Well, yeah, and look, because we're only leaning into one side of the matchup, go down the other end of the floor. What is Joel Embiid going to be able to do with Olajuwon's quickness and his footwork? Nothing. Olajuwon's going to get every shot he wants. That is, and ultimately it comes down to conditioning and your want to. Hakeem Olajuwon had the ultimate want to, and he was always in terrific shape. I think that would be the ultimate telltale in that matchup. But anybody that thinks Shaq or Hakeem Olajuwon could just shut Joel Embiid down at his very peak, I just totally disagree with that. And look, on the Shaq thing, anybody out there listening, I'm not anti-Shaq. I'm just realistic. He wasn't a good defender. Trust me, I'm a Lakers fan. We won 3 championships. It wasn't because he was a good defender. And don't look at the numbers and go, well, he averaged like 3 blocks a game, Mo. Sure. If somebody took it right to the basket, he was right there, he chucked it. But if you played against a team who had a center who could shoot from 15 feet out, he stayed in the paint and they got whatever shot they wanted. Here's the myth that I need to bust. Every time Sacramento gave the Lakers a hard time, the myth was Sacramento was attacking Kobe. The actual fact was they were attacking Shaq because they knew he would always drop into the paint and they would get whatever shot they wanted on offense. That's why those series were so tough. We could score on them, but we could not stop them because Shaq was the weakest. He was the weakest link on that defensive chain.
Yeah, watching that, you could see it real quick because you could see like Mike Bibby, for example, he was abusing the drop coverage, just pull-up jumper after pull-up jumper.
They're a jump shooting team. Think about it. C. Webb had a 16, 18-foot jump shot. Vlade could hit a 15, 16-foot jump shot. Like Doug Christie, Peja, like they could all shoot the rock. They didn't have to attack the rim. It was a what do you call it? A perfect storm. If you want to challenge those Lakers at that time, the Kings were a perfect storm. The only problem was Sacramento as a unit, they weren't great defensively. And so you knew on the other end, Kobe and Shaq was going to get theirs.
Yeah, and they also had one of my favorite players, another guy who I always think about using for underrated player of the week, Peja Stojakovic.
Oh, Peja.
If anybody forgets how good Prime Peja was, guess who was 4th in MVP voting in 2004? Peja. Because that's the year C-Webb went down. And
they still had a terrific year. I remember that. I also remember an underrated guy off the bench for that team who I thought he had a reputation as being a good defender, but he made himself into a very good scorer, Bobby Jackson. Bobby Jackson was a problem coming off that bench.
Yeah, and it was funny with that Kings team is they got worse when Chris Webber came back. Like, Chris Webber coming back just completely disrupted all of their offensive momentum. He started wanting to play his game and slow down the offense, and it just completely jacked up Sacramento for the last 20 games of that year when he finally came back.
He wasn't the same Chris Webber, too, though. He had that microfracture surgery, and the first thing you noticed was he primarily relied on his jump shot and his jump hook. He couldn't explode to the basket. He couldn't finish strong through people anymore, and that was him for the rest of his career. You look at Chris Webber when he went to the Sixers. A good player, but that wasn't MVP caliber Chris Webber. His athleticism was gone. And so everybody hyped up Chris Webber coming to Philly, but they didn't get Chris Webber at his peak. They got what was left of him. And then he moved on to the Pistons. And I would say Chris Webber on the Pistons was almost as bad as Allen Iverson on the Pistons.
Oh, yeah. Allen Iverson on the Pistons.
And that was painful.
Yeah, that's putting it lightly. So I figure, why don't we start this little fun little game we got?
Let's do it.
So last week, we're going week by week. We're covering 2 divisions at a time. And we're trying to guess if they're a playoff team, a play-in team, or are they going to be a lottery team? This week, we have ourselves a really fun one, the Northwest Division. So, why don't we just start right at the top? The Oklahoma City Thunder. I think we'll both agree on this one, but I'll let you start, Mo.
They're absolutely a playoff team. They're not just a playoff team; they're a title contender. They could very well end up in the conference finals. I love the addition of Caruso. I like the fact that they believe that Zach Edey can help them, and I think so too. I said it. I think Zach Edey is going to be a good pro, and they don't need Zach Edey to be a superstar. If he's a good pro, if he's what I think he can be in situational basketball, he's going to have incredible value to Oklahoma City.
No, I agree. I think OKC, this is easily a playoff team. I think they'll be in the battle again for the 1 seed.
Agreed.
And I think the biggest thing that they're going to have going for them is just internal improvement. This is a team that's going to be coming back with, I think Jalen Williams will be even better.
Even better. Agreed.
And I have very high praise for Jalen Williams. I think that, and this might be a hot take to some, but I think Jalen Williams will end up being a better basketball player than Jaylen Brown. That's how highly I think of him. And obviously, we're talking about a phenomenal player in that regard. Shea, Chet, this team is super young, and it's just going to get better. My question and what I think is going to be interesting is how they're going to integrate Isaiah Hartenstein. I think they're going to move Chet to the 4, and I think that's just going to give them more options. And it's going to create this fun 5-out lineup, and I'm going to have a blast watching it, honestly.
Like I said, the addition, drafting Edey, adding a Hartenstein, it gave them elements that they lacked. They lack size, and now they're going to have 2 bigs that can be interchangeable. And don't forget, in certain closing lineups, I think Chet's going to play the 5, and you can call it small. Now, he's slight in terms of his build, but he is over 7 feet tall. So they're going to have an interesting closing lineup because you're probably going to have Alex Caruso and Lou Dort on the floor. Those are 2 dogs. J-Dub is an underrated defender, and Shea can get at you. So they're going to be a very interesting, very deep team. Don't forget with what they can do with the rest of the guys on the bench. Wiggins is nice coming off their bench. Isaiah Joe is a sniper, a 3-point sniper. This is a very versatile, a very young team. And I think them losing when they lost, the way they lost, I think they're going to come back mentally tougher and understand what the playoff basketball is. So I think this team is not just a playoff contender. Like I said, this is a legitimate contender to win the West.
Yeah, and I'm super excited. And of course, they made the big trade, snagged Alex Caruso, and that's going to be absolutely terrifying for the rest of the league. Like, that perimeter defense is going to be absolutely insane to watch.
I wanted him back. I wanted the Lakers to go after him, but look, kudos to Oklahoma City for making that. The crazy thing is, Brett, the trade for Giddey for Caruso was literally a 1-for-1. Like, there were other teams that were offering first-round picks for Caruso. Chicago went and got Josh Giddey. And again, I think Josh Giddey is a really good player. I want to put that out there so it doesn't sound negative when I say what I say. He's not a centerpiece type player. And I think Chicago's geeked about getting him like they think Giddey's going to be an all-star. And that's not going to happen. He's going to be really good, and he can help you as a complementary player because that's what he is. He's a complementary player. He can play very well off of talented stars. But if Chicago thinks they're going to go, we got White and we got Josh Giddey, and they're going to lead them to the playoffs, I looked at it, the move is not a bad move, but I'm wondering because this will be the last year of Josh Giddey's rookie contract. So you and I both know Josh Giddey's going to turn around and go, hey, Chicago, I think I'm worth at least 90 million, 90, 95 or 100 million. And if you look at some of the guys and some of the contracts that have been signed, he probably is worth about $100 million. I just don't know if I'm Chicago that I would value him that much.
No, unless you're really sold on like dropping 190 million total into a core of Patrick Williams and Josh Giddey, because they just paid him this offseason too.
They did. Look, the Bulls are bad for a reason, and it has a lot to do with their front office.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But, I figure let's hop on to our second team here. And I think this is maybe the most intriguing one to me because the Denver Nuggets, they'll always be a legitimate playoff team, I think, as long as Nikola Jokic just exists. If he can carry that 2002 squad, that 2000, the 2022 squad that they had when they were running Facu Campazzo, Monty Morris, Austin Rivers, like as legitimate playoff rotation players, if he can carry that squad to the playoffs, no doubt that this team's going to make it. But I question once they get there, like what's their ceiling in the playoffs? Are they a title contender? Are they just is their ceiling like second round exit? Mo, what do you think about the Denver Nuggets?
So your first point, if you have Nikola Jokic, if you've got Jamal Murray, if you've got Porter Jr., I I I think they have talent, but they were top heavy because they didn't have a bench last year. Remember, the year they won the title, they had an outstanding starting five. They had Aaron Gordon, they had KCP, and those guys in that lineup. Aaron Gordon could give you 15, 16 points a night, 8 or 9 rebounds, but he was the physicality guy. He brought physicality. I know he's not as long as most fours, but he's as physically as strong as any four, and he can get after you. KCP, great point of attack defender. He did the dirty work, not to mention being a 40% three-point shooter. He allowed Jokic and Murray to play with more space. Him and Porter Jr. allowed them to play with space. Calvin Booth, to me, went into this offseason, and I've said this already, he had one job. Keep that core five together. And he failed. Denver blinked because they were afraid of the second apron. And I'm sorry. I get it. You don't want to go into that second apron, but at some point, are you done trying to win titles? Because that's what it says to me. The Denver Nuggets, if you're looking at their current rosters, they're presently constructed. Yes, they're going to be in the playoffs. Absolutely. Barring major injury, they're going to be in the playoffs. No, they're not going back to the finals. Not this season, not with this roster. I think their ceiling could be first round, maybe second round. And I'm not joking. They're going to make the playoffs, but they're not. They've gotten progressively worse. And let's not forget, I know the series versus Minnesota was a 7-game series, but it didn't feel like it. And it didn't feel like it because every time they lost to the Timberwolves, they didn't just lose. They got the brakes beat off of them. And they got the brakes beat off of them in a home game. How do you lose a home game 7? That's a mental hurdle. So I get it. You got Joker, you got Murray, you have a core, but you've weakened the core. You're going to put Christian Braun into the starting lineup. He's probably a little bit of a better athlete than KCP, but he can't shoot like KCP. And I just think you've just weakened your bench even further. Barring one of their bench players having a career year, barring that, I think the Denver Nuggets are a first-round exit.
Yeah, I could, depending on the matchup, I could see it.
Well, just think about it. I think Dallas is better. If you told me Dallas and Denver in a series, it might be a great series, but it wouldn't shock me if Dallas took them out. I think the Timberwolves have already proven they're their kryptonite, and the Timberwolves got better in the offseason. And let's not forget, the team that I've been telling people don't forget, they weren't in the playoffs, but not because they weren't good. All of their best players were injured. The Grizzlies will be back at full strength. That means someone who made the playoffs last year automatically is not going to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, no, I could see it. It's going to be tougher, and I don't think the Nuggets are winning it all this year. But apparently, probably just because I think that they're going to prove me wrong, but I don't think they will.
And explain this, Brett. When you say you're afraid of the second apron, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe their owner is Mr. Kroenke, right?
Yeah.
And the man owns like how many pro teams? And I mean, he's made of money. He's a billionaire. Like why can't you be more like Steve Ballmer? You're not one of those owners where the franchise is your primary way to make money or to make a living. It's one of your playthings. And his wife is one of the heirs to the Walmart fortune. You got money left and right. You didn't have enough money to pay KCP? Really? crazy. I just, if I'm Nikola Jokic and he's a good guy, he's a trooper, he's not said anything, he doesn't strike me as the type. But remember, Joker's in his prime. He's 28. Your prime could last until you're about 33, 34, barring an injury. And if I'm him, I'm wondering what's next. Because remember, Brett, they're negotiating with Jamal Murray right now. He's getting ready to get a big extension, which means you said let KCP go because you wanted to get Murray at a certain number. But what if Murray turns down that number that you offer because he wants more? He wants the full max. Like, I feel like Denver is at a very precarious situation because a team that just won a title a couple of years ago that looked like they'd make it back to at least one or two more finals, their run might be over sooner than we thought. Literally that quick.
Yeah, I could see it. It shows how scared teams are of that second apron, and I think we'll see more of this in the future, where you're just having really talented, great pieces like KCP just switching teams, maybe even if they don't want to, just because these owners are going to be scared of all the different variables of trying to build the team in that second apron. So it's unfortunate, but I guess one team's loss is another team's gain.
Agreed.
So now we have, of course, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Mo, what do you think about the Timberwolves coming into this year?
I love what they did in the draft. I love that they decided to bring their core back. I think Anthony Edwards getting that experience around those vets like LeBron, like AD, KD, Booker, and that group, even though they're going to be his direct competition, you don't think he's sponging off of them, absorbing that knowledge? You're going to get a better Anthony Edwards. I think Anthony Edwards will be in the MVP conversation this season. I think he's going to take another leap going forward. So to cut this short, of course they're a playoff team. This division has two teams that I think are legit conference finals or finals. They have a chance to make it to the finals. I think the best two teams in this division, Oklahoma City, Minnesota, I think Denver's third. This is a great division because all three of those teams are going to make the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. I just think the other two have higher ceilings than the Nuggets.
I agree. This is a team that dominated the draft. They absolutely won. Obviously, with not only getting Dillingham, which was a great trade, trading a 20, I think it was 31 first for him. Awesome value trade for him. And then, of course, they got Terrence Shannon Jr., a long athletic wing. Insanely talented. He showed out in Summer League. And this is going to be a team where they're absolutely going to show out. And I'm here for it. And I'm excited to see the development of not only Ant and the next step that he takes, but of these young guys to see how they adjust to the game. I'm absolutely sure that Rob Dillingham, he'll probably start the year as like a microwave six-man scorer off the bench. And I'm curious to see just how their roles evolve over the course of the season.
Brett, let me ask you this. When the Timberwolves went into the draft, do you think they went into the draft thinking, because this is what I thought they were thinking, the guys that they specifically targeted and drafted, they were like, we already have Anthony Edwards. We know he's a dog. They went out and got two more dogs, right? They got two more young guys that'll go at you that are fearless and relentless, both high basketball IQs. I think they're looking at these two guys as two guys that going forward, they'll go forward with Anthony Edwards. Like, I think before the season is over, both of them are going to be in the rotation on a regular basis.
I could absolutely see it. Both of those guys are just phenomenal talents. And I don't think they'll bust into the starting lineup quite yet, but I do think you're right. I think you're looking at the 7th and 8th guys off the bench. I definitely think by the end of the year that these guys are going to smash into the starting lineup. Not starting lineup, but the regular rotation.
Yeah, I can see it. I think that's the crazy part. The Timberwolves got deeper, they got more athletic, and the Nuggets got a little bit older. They lost more depth.
And of course, our next team we are going to take a look at, and I think this will be quite an easy one for both of us. I think the rest of this division is, quite frankly,
we're on the same page.
Utah Jazz.
Lottery team.
Yeah.
And,
I think
thank God for them, because Danny Ainge has got like 35 picks. So yeah.
they're interesting in the sense that they have Laurie Markkinen, and I think the most interesting thing about them will be if they trade Laurie Markkinen or not. However, I do believe in Cody Williams. I think that was a great pick. If anybody doesn't know, he's the brother of Jalen Williams on the Thunder. And I think there's talent here, but I don't think any of this talent's going to come even close to ready to win. They need that centerpiece. And I think they're going to end up trading off Laurie Markkinen at some point.
So I think Laurie Markkinen is a star. I think, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I think he's a star. What I don't think he is I don't think he's the guy. I don't think you build a team around Laurie Markkinen. I think Laurie Markkinen is a all-star who plays off of a superstar. He's not a superstar. And if I know Danny Ainge, he'll say all the right things and go, well, if teams are interested, but right now we're going to go forward with Laurie Markkinen. And all the while, Danny Ainge is like, of course, we're going to trade him, you fools. We're going to be a lottery team. And we don't want just a first-round pick. We want one of the higher first-round picks. They want to trade. They want to get like one of the other bad teams' first-round picks because they know the value that they'll get. So I do think Laurie Markkinen is going to get traded. I think that's the worst-kept secret in basketball. The only question is what Danny Ainge will end up with in return.
Appreciate the compliment, Gene, by the way. I agree. And the way I always looked at Laurie Markkinen, and I use my own team as a reference point because it's easy, right? Is he's not Giannis, he's Chris Middleton. He's the star that can play off of the superstar, but he's not the guy.
Correct.
So I totally agree with that because that's always been my assessment of Laurie Markkinen in general. And I think the team that makes the move, it'll be interesting, but I think the Thunder are interesting. They got the picks.
Oh my God, do they have the picks? Do they have
got
the picks?
And they could absolutely use him. He can play small forward for him, and that would just completely give them so many different options and variables on what they want to do with rotations. Like I think that would be a great use of some of their assets, honestly.
I think Oklahoma City is an interesting. I don't know if he would end up there, but I could see where he would work because he would just make them that much more versatile. What I know is Danny Ainge is maybe the greatest trade guy in the NBA. Riverboat Danny Ainge. Yeah, like Gene just said, Danny Ainge is Howie. He really is. And the only other guy that can compete with Danny Ainge, he resides in Oklahoma City, Sam Presti. I think Markkinen. I think fantasy wise, I could see him on the Thunder. I think realistically, because they're so talented, I don't know if they need him because I don't know if they'd be. They have. I'm thinking right now, Chet eventually is going to be a 20+ per game scorer. I think J-Dub is a 20+ per game scorer. We already know what Shea is. I don't know how many 20+ per game scorers you need on one roster because they already have scoring also coming off the bench from Wiggins. Now you add a guy like Caruso, who's an elite defender. He can also give you 10 points a game because he's improved his three-point shooting. I don't know if they need his firepower because think about this. At some point, Brett, they're going to have to pay Chet. They're going to have to pay J-Dub. In this current NBA, the way everybody's looking at the second apron, I don't think you can pay those four guys like that because I think Markkanen's a guy that's going to – the other two are going to command well over $100 million. Markkanen's going to command over $100 million, and Shea's going to be around 2+. There's no way they can afford all of them. It's one of the reasons why they had no problem letting Getty go because they didn't really value Getty that much. Remember what you and I had this conversation. You said that looking at Shea, looking at J-Dub, everything that Getty did well, they no longer needed it because those guys started creating their own shots. I think Markkanen would be great on a team who's desperate for another young piece like Golden State. It's not going to happen, but I'll put it out there. Would he be a great fit on my Lakers? Absolutely. Here's the problem, Brett. We don't have it. I'll say it. I could be wrong. I don't think we have anything that Danny Ainge wants.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam Presti's the best GM in basketball. Him and Danny Ainge, Pistons. Oh, this is an interesting idea.
I agree. I agree.
They got a comment on TikTok. It's the Pistons need Laurie. Laurie to the Pistons would actually be very interesting because I think Cade Cunningham needs. If he got a guy like Laurie, I think that would help him so much.
Well, if he got marketed, it would give him a legitimate second guy. It would also give them another shooter. I'm not touching that, man.
Yeah,
those are all facts. Those are all facts to my knowledge. I'm leaving it right there. I think marketing to the Pistons actually wouldn't be a bad idea. People forget Lauri Markkanen is still 23 years old. He's a young man. Put him with Cade and give them a 1-2 punch to build off of. That's very un-Pistons like to make that move, but I wouldn't mind seeing that move.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that and if the Pistons got Cade, I think that would if they got Cade. Let me rephrase. Let me try this again. If the Pistons got Laurie and put him next to Cade, that would be amazing, but it would be tough for Cade because it would also give Cade no excuses at this point, right? Like, unfortunately, Cade was saddled with the worst roster in basketball and terrible head coaching last year. But with a new coach, let's say he got Laurie, and now he gets, even guys like Tobias Harris is a great improvement what they had last year. Even Malik Beasley gives them that spacing. If you paired Cade with Laurie and that roster still, with all the extra shooting that they added, which, by the way, they didn't have at all last year, with all that extra three-point shooting they added, that's a lot of extra pressure on Cade because if he doesn't step up like the way we think he should be able to, I think that opens the door for questions about Cade Cunningham.
Don't forget, Jalen Duren is going to be a year better. And I thought he was terrific last season as a rookie. Jalen Duren is going to be a year better. We forget about what their rookies did as the season finished off. So I think they get better overall and they get more depth if they got marketing. And I also believe this: if those guys all took another step forward in their development, I think they're a fringe play-in team. They have a legit, like you said, if you've got Cade and you've got marketing, you've got Duren, it's not like you have a shortage of talent on that team. You bring in a new coach, a new system. I think Detroit could be very interesting. Like, look, last year, I was literally only watching Detroit Pistons basketballs, and I'll be honest, Piston fans, I was only watching because Jalen Duren's on my fantasy team, and I needed to know what he was doing. but I will watch. If you got Lauri Markkanen, I'm a watch. I'm a hooper, and I love watching hoops. I just think that would bring a breath of freshness to the Pistons. It would make them what they haven't been in years exciting. It would give the fans something they haven't had in the longest time. Legitimate hope that you might get into the playoffs.
So we have a question over here on TikTok for anybody that's confused why I keep looking in two directions. I got TikTok and we're also streaming on multiple different platforms here. Dustin, by the way, thank you for the gift, is asking, who's your guys' sleepers team? Duren will only get better. He just needs to improve on defense. Agreed. But Mo, who is your sleeper team going into 2024?
In this division or in Detroit's division?
Just in general, just in the NBA.
I think I feel like this is weird to say. They're not a sleeper team, but they're almost like they're just a forgotten team. I think it's Memphis. We're talking about Luka, and we're talking about Anthony Edwards, and we're talking about the usual suspects in Giannis and Embiid. We're talking about the ascendance of Jalen Brunson. We almost forget Ja Morant is a monster. He is an absolute beast when healthy. Desmond Bane is an all-star caliber 2 guard. Marcus Smart he's a similar version of a lesser version to me of Jrue Holiday, but a veteran presence that can make the big shot when needed, make the big defensive stop when needed. You're getting Jaren Jackson back, defensive player of the year winner, Also, a guy who's added to his offensive back and give you 20 a night. And now you add those 2 young studs they drafted along with Josh Edey. I'm just saying, I mean, not Josh Edey, I'm sorry. Well, no, they did add Josh Edey, correct. I just think when you look at them, you almost forget they were not a good team by default because of the injuries. And we go down the list, Brett, of the teams that made the playoffs. Oklahoma City, Denver, the Timberwolves, the Mavs, the Lakers got in there. Who am I leaving out in the West? It's freezing my head. I don't know. My point is that the Clippers got in there, although when the Clippers get in, we kind of already figure how that's going to end because it ends the same way all the damn time. My point is this: of those teams that got in, if you look at the Grizzlies roster top to bottom, they're as good or better than the bottom half of those teams that got in. I think Memphis, barring major injury, but I think Memphis, they're going to be no worse than a 4th seed in the West, maybe higher.
No, that's fair. I got a different team. I'm going to guess a team that completely missed the playoffs this year in the West is going to sneak into the play-in. And my team that's going to do that, that's not named the Memphis Grizzlies, the Houston Rockets.
Ooh, okay.
This is a young team that's got a lot of intriguing pieces. Not only do they have a lot of intriguing pieces, this team already played 500 ball last year. Not a people watch them, but this team actually played really well, and down the stretch, they look good. Not to mention, they do have Alperen Sengun. Awesome playmaker out of the post and just off the low block and elbow areas. Jabari Smith. You can tell. You can watch Jabari Smith and the way he conducts himself. You can tell he wants it. This man always is looking to improve his game, and I think you'll see him take a nice leap. Fred VanVleet, even Dylan Brooks. This team, I think, has a lot of talent. And now we're going to get a second-year jump from a lot of these young guys, and I think the Houston Rockets are going to make a leap that shocks a lot of people.
And let's not forget about Jalen Green, right?
Yeah.
He's a go out and he's a bucket getter. Everybody out there, Jalen Green is a bucket getter. And I think he's going to take a leap. You know what? I wasn't even thinking about Houston, but they had a good season playing 500 ball with that team. First year coach, Coach Udoka taking over. I think you're right. I think Houston is gonna bogart their way into the playoffs. Like I said, I think there's a couple of teams that made the playoffs this year that will not make the playoffs.
And I think
go ahead.
No, I'll say, and I think the bench unit is maybe the most intriguing part to me, right? Because Cam Whitmore, Amen Thompson, Reed Shepherd, Tari Eason, Steven Adams. That's your bench unit. That's a young bench unit, and we got to understand that bench unit and just the team in general. They're going to struggle with consistency. They're going to make mistakes. That's just kind of a part of development. But I think that this team is going to thrive, rise to the occasion. And when your big addition is adding someone like Reed Shepherd, who, by the way, if I remember correctly, he shot 54% from 3 just in general last year in college. You're adding that kind of spacing to give everybody that much more room to work. And another year of Ben Thompson, this team's going to be dangerous, and I think this team's going to knock one of the last year's playoff teams out of the spot.
I like what Dustin said. I like what you said. When you say the name Cam Whitmore, now, as a basketball fan, it makes me get excited because I think Cam Whitmore has star written all over him. But as a Laker fan, it makes me depressed. We could have drafted Cam Whitmore. In that draft, Rob had one thing to get right. And I don't want to kill the young man they drafted because I still hold out hope. But how you skip over Cam Whitmore, Rob, Jesus Christ, man, what are you doing? My God. We were talking about Jalen Green as a bucket. Cam Whitmore is a bucket. And not just that, he's one of those power 2 guards. Cam Whitmore weighs about 230. He's built like Joe Johnson, but he's got hops. And he's a bucket getter. And I think that if Coach Udoka can hone that, rein him in a little bit, and get more consistency out of him, yeah, look, I think when you look at what Cam Whitmore can do coming off the bench, what Jalen Green does in that starting lineup, when Sengun can do from the post, and some of the veteran presence that they have around them, yeah, absolutely, Houston. I think Houston is going to be a playoff team.
No. And then our last team, I'm sure we can agree on this one pretty quickly too. The Portland Trail Blazers. This team's destined for the lottery. I don't know if you're a big on the Blazers, but I'm going lottery.
See, this is where you, my partner, and everybody that's listening to us and watching us on TikTok is wrong. Jeremy Grant is going to have a career year and lead the Portland. I'm joking. Of course, they're going to the lottery. Of course, they're going to the lottery. This is a bad team, and it's a bad team that does have some young talent, but I don't think they have any direction. And I think you and I are both probably Chauncey Billups fans, and we're rooting for Chauncey Billups, Mr. Big Shot, to be able to be the guy that turned them around. But I think this is another development year. The same way that Portland didn't want to trade, I think to the Lakers, they didn't want to trade Jeremy Grant. I was laughing. I'm actually a Lakers fan, and I was like, I'm glad that trade didn't happen. We don't need Jeremy Grant. We got a Jeremy Grant already on our bench. We don't need another one. So look, I think it's no question that Portland's a lottery team, and you talk about buyers and sellers, they're selling as many guys as they can to get those big contracts off their roster. If they can move Ayton tonight, they do it tonight. If they can move Jeremy Grant before I go to bed, that would happen as well too. This team is looking forward because they know nothing's happening in the present.
Yeah, DeAndre Ayton got on my nerves as well, just because of he talked so big, like he was going to destroy everybody. He gassed up such a huge season, and then he went out and looked like the same timid DeAndre Ayton that I saw. And he goes, "Well, the last 25 games were what really were my potential." I was like, "You went for 18 and 10. That's exactly what you did in Phoenix. That's awesome." But this isn't what you gassed up. You said you were going to be dominating. You were perfectly fine, Ayton, but you weren't dominating. But the Blazers did make the one trade that I did want to see the Thunder make, because the one guy I thought would have been a perfect fit for him was Denny Avdija. And that was a great trade by the Thunder. I want to give him props for that. And I think year 2 Scoot Henderson's going to be much better. Scoot seemed really good at getting to his spots, but he just couldn't figure out how to, actually finish the plays when he got there. So I'm looking forward to see the development of Scoot Henderson. Yeah, dude, at the end of the day with Ayton, he's a stat. He's going to put up decent looking numbers, but definitely ain't worth that max money. That's for sure.
You know what's going to happen, right? Ayton's doing 18 and 10. But you know the rule, right? Really, really bad teams, they have leading scorers too. They have guys that lead their team in scoring too, but they're really, really bad teams. But somebody's going to put up a stat line and go, did you know Hall of Famer Willis Reed averaged 18 and 10 and DeAndre Ayton averaged 18 and 10? You know what that means? That means DeAndre Ayton is as good, because that's how it goes. It throw out some weak numbers. If you're the best player, and he's not even the best player, I think Miles Simon is the best player, right? Isn't Simons the best player in the Blazers right now? Let me ask you this, Brett.
Simons or Jeremy Grant, whichever way you want to go with that one.
All right, well, if Jeremy Grant's your best player, there's a reason why you're a lottery team. That's just a given. Because at his best, and I mean at his best, when Jeremy Grant was the 4th guy on the Nuggets, that's where he belongs. When Jeremy Grant was the best player in the Pistons, guess what the Pistons were? They were a lottery team. You know why? Because Jeremy Grant was their best player. You have to know what you're doing. You can't just bring somebody in just because. I'll say that to say this. I'm rooting for Chauncey Billups to turn it around, but I feel like Ayton, Grant, and Simons, I think it wouldn't shock me if they don't try to move all 3 of them, because I don't think any of them are foundational players. You can't build around Ayton. You can't build around a Grant. You can't build around Miles Simon. I think Miles Simons, and you might disagree, but I think he's more Malik Monk than he is a star as a starting 2 guard.
Yeah, Anthony Simons at the end of the day, he's a bench.
I'm sorry, Anthony Simons, right?
Yeah, he's a microwave scorer. I do like Anthony Simons, but he's definitely not the guy you're building your franchise around.
And that's the problem right now, because you were talking about Scoot. I thought Scoot got better as the year progressed, but he's going to have to take a step in being a better consistent jump shooter. He doesn't have to be a great 3-point shooter, but he's got to be able to hit at least a 16 or 18-foot midi so that teams will push up on him and respect him. Because if they know all you can do is penetrate and you don't have a jump shot, they're going to play. They're going to go under every screen. They're going to play drop coverage and go ahead, Scoot. They're going to give Scoot jump shots the way everybody gives Russell Westbrook jump shots.
Yeah, if he can figure out how to get rid of, like, actually put the ball in the basket, because he can get to whatever spot he wants on the court. Now he's just got to figure out how to finish those plays consistently.
No doubt. Hey, appreciate you, Dustin, for checking in.
Yeah, thanks, Dustin. It was awesome talking to you, man. And of course, we have one more division before we call it a night. So let's do the Southwest. And we'll start with the Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic. Sorry, I had to sing the song. So I'll start with saying, yeah, Orlando Magic, they're a playoff team. They're winning this division. I think they're rather easily.
I think Orlando's a playoff team, and I think this division will almost play out like it did last season, in the exact order we currently have it. I think Orlando's a playoff team. I think them adding KCP to what they already did, because they actually were a very good defensive team, but I think he's going to make them that much better. But he also gives them shooting. His shooting will allow Paolo and Wagner to operate more one-on-one. So I think KCP, the addition of him, will help them not only on the court, but in the locker room as well. A veteran presence, a pro's pro. I think it's going to make them a little bit better. Do I think they're going to go on a deeper run? No, because I still think they're a young team finding their way. But could I see them having a similar situation where this time around they end up playing Cleveland, but instead of losing in 7 games, they find a way to win a first-round series? Absolutely. It would not shock me at all. I think Orlando wins this division. They're a good team. They're a good team on the come up.
Man, I think they're a great team on the come up, and I love Paolo Banchero, but I think he's got to work on his playmaking. I think he gets tunnel vision too much. And I had somebody, because I said it before and I say it again, I think Paolo Banchero is a future MVP in this league, even though he's got some things to work on, but I think he's going to be a future MVP. But when I said that in the chat, and this one guy straight up came out and said, I don't think Disney Julius Randle is going to be winning an MVP. I was like, okay, ouch. But at the same time, like, the player that Paolo Banchero is right now, I can see where you get the Julius Randle comparison. I think that he's got a bright future, but just kind of like what we said with Randle, it's kind of the same thing goes to him, where he's just got to focus more on spraying the ball around and just stop settling for so many tough jumpers.
Right. And play to his strengths. He's one of the bigger threes in basketball. Like, he's one of those, he's like a 240+ pound three who can bully ball most threes if he gets into the post more. I think he's got to diversify his game more, because too often when you watch the Magic play, Paolo settles for contested jump shots, and he's more than that. He has a better bag than that. So I think that will come with maturity. I think that'll come as he takes the leap forward and adjustment. And he strikes me as the kind of kid that gets in the lab, gets in the gym a lot. So I'm expecting a leap from him. I'm expecting a leap from Wagner as well. I think this is going to be an improved team who it would not surprise me if they won a first, maybe even a second round series, but I think they win at least a first round series.
No, absolutely. And of course, the second team that we have here is a team that, well, we can't get to go away. It doesn't. At this point, I'm convinced that we can give Coach Spo, Jimmy Hero, and like 10 Walmart cashiers, and they'd find their way into the playoffs. It's the Miami Heat, and I think that this is a play-in team, just like last year. Maybe they'll get one of the top play-in spots, but I think regardless, this is a team that I do think got better. And I think their improvement is going to come in the form of a young man named Kel'el Ware. Kel'el Ware was dominating Summer League. And the thing that I look for in Summer League isn't the stats. I don't really care about the stats in Summer League. How are you dominating Summer League? And he's willing to play off the ball. He was willing to step out and shoot the three. He was willing to just kind of be a connective supporting piece. And he was doing a lot of damage just without the ball in his hands. So I think that Kel'el Ware is going to make a big impact. And I'll make maybe hot take to some right now if you haven't watched him. I think Khalil Ware cracks the starting lineup at some point during the season, and they move Bam to the 4.
I don't doubt what you're saying. I think Bam will play sometime at the 4, but I think he's still predominantly going to be a 5. I think what Spoelstra will do this year, though, Brett, more than years past, I think he'll look at who they're playing and go, okay, tonight we need to be a little bit bigger. We'll put Bam at the 4. And look, a lot of people aren't as big on Bam as I am. I think Bam is underrated, not overrated, underrated. I think when you look at him as an all-around defender, there are guys that average more block shots per game, but his impact on defense is his ability to slide his feet, his ability to play in space, his ability to switch every position and impact the thing. Like defense isn't just great block shots. It's fighting guys for position. It's contesting shots. It's getting guys out of their comfort zone. Bam's terrific at all three. So I think I'm looking at Bam, and I'm also looking at Jimmy Butler, who said, I'm not signing an extension with the Heat, which means Jimmy Butler's basically saying, I'm betting on myself, Pat Riley. I'm going to and if you're betting yourself, I have to believe Jimmy Butler plans on playing 60 plus games this year. And he plans on putting up Jimmy Butler like numbers, let's say 22, 5 and 5, making an all-star team, maybe making one of the all-NBA teams if he's going to play that way. So if you've got a motivated Bam and Jimmy, along with some of the young additions that they made, yeah, Miami's definitely a playoff team. I think they're a fringe playoff team because I don't think they're that deep overall, but they're that kind of playoff team if they go into the playoffs and they're healthy, because that's always key with the Heat as well. And they're healthy, you don't want to have to play them in that play-in game.
Yeah, they always seem to come out on top. Bam is, I was just about to say that too, Alex. Thanks for tuning in. Bam has looked phenomenal for Team USA. And the thing with Bam is, at least this year for Team USA, and hopefully this translates for the Miami Heat in the regular season, is he just looks more comfortable shooting the ball.
Yeah.
Like sometimes when he catches it with Miami in the regular season, the man hesitates a lot. And he looks almost indecisive at times. But for Team USA, he's just catching it and making a decision right away and forcing the defense to rotate, or he's just taking the open jumper right off the bat. If you get that Bam for the Miami Heat, I have no doubt that I could very well see this being the top play-in team, and I think it'll all come down to Bam Adebayo. And I agree, he's underrated. Bam Adebayo, he might not be the best player on the Miami Heat, but he's the most consistent player on the Miami Heat. He's always there. You know what you're going to get from him. And he's just been their most consistent player for what now? 2 finals runs and multiple Eastern Conference finals runs. So,
and like you said, Brett, if he adds a 3-point shot to his game, and I'm not saying Bam goes crazy and start taking 6 or 7 threes a game. Let's say he takes 3 a game, but he shoots a strong percentage around 37, 38%. That's going to open up the floor more for everybody if he becomes a legitimate threat on the perimeter.
Yeah, absolutely. And our next team is a team I very much dislike. The Atlanta Hawks. I think this is a lottery team. I do not believe in the Atlanta Hawks this year. I think they're interesting, but I don't think that's going to result to a ton of wins. And it ain't no disrespect to Trae Young. I think Trae Young's a phenomenal offensive talent, and I think you're going to see that this year. I think he's going to bring this team to more wins than you would expect this team to have, but I'm looking at like the defensive end side of the ball, and there's only so much that like Jalen Johnson and Clint Capella and Okonwu can do. And that's even if we get a motivated Clint Capella. One thing I will say about Clint Capella these past few years is he doesn't always look motivated. So I think this will be an interesting team, but I think it's a little too dysfunctional for my liking. And I think this is going to be the team that is going to end up missing out on a play-in spot.
Yeah, I think this is a team they're gonna win just enough games, Brett, that they come up short in making the playoffs. So they're not gonna be a lottery team. They're just gonna come up short. I think they're gonna win, 35, 38 games, but I don't see them in the playoffs. I still think I just don't like their roster construction overall. I don't, because I don't know the direction of the franchise. 1 minute you're saying they want to move on for Trae Young. The next minute they're saying, like, no, we bought in. We're going to build around Trae Young. I look at the moves that they made. I don't see how, I know they're keeping Trae Young, but I don't see where they made moves that benefit him. That if he's your guy, then you make moves that complement his skill set. And I didn't see moves like that being made.
That's fair. Thank you for the gifts, Pop Culture Phenomena. Really appreciate you.
That's my guy, Chris.
Hey! Yeah, I agree that this Hawks team is just, I don't know how to say it, but they're just awkward. Now, but the Hawks, I think we can both agree on this next team too rather quickly. It's the one team I'm lower on than the Hawks. It's the Hornets. This team is not going to be a playoff team either. What do you think about the Hornets this year?
You know what? I think about the Hornets this year the same way I've thought about the Hornets, I don't know, the last 10 years. They're going to be bad. They're going to sell their season ticket holders on hope, and hope's not coming anytime soon. Like, you know that line, the light at the end of the tunnel? They're in a very dark tunnel, and there's no light. There's no light. They have no direction. I don't know where they're going. And I think I'm looking at this team. They're probably a 25-win team, maybe 30. I just think it has talent, but we always talk about teams in this sense. Do you have a foundational player that you can say, this is the guy, we could put pieces around him, this is his next guy, and go forward? They have name recognition people like LaMelo Ball, who has talent, but I don't think LaMelo's the guy. I think he's talented, but I don't think he can be the best player on a contender. I don't see him like that. I think he's more flash than substance. So I just think it's going to be another disappointing year. Like, I guess if you're a Charlotte's fan, the good news is you won't be the worst team in the division. There's that.
Yeah, I think there's talent to be had. I think Brandon Miller has a ton of potential. But after behind like Brandon Miller and Miles, you know who, don't really like to talk about that guy.
Right.
I think LaMelo Ball is immensely talented. However, when it comes to LaMelo Ball, the best ability is availability. He's never there. He can be as talented as he wants to be, but when you're in street clothes on the sidelines, at this point, LaMelo Ball is what people think Anthony Davis is, always hurt. And when it comes to the Hornets, if they're healthy, I think they got a solid starting five. But the issue is they got to play the bench at some point. Like, if you tell me I'm running a lineup with LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, looking at it right now, Josh Green, Miles Bridges, Mark Williams, solid starting five. I could probably compete with a few teams. Let's go to the bench. I'm going to butcher this name, but exactly. Shooting guard Trey Mann, Cody Martin, Grant Williams, who burns bridges with every franchise that he goes to, and
every franchise.
Richards. Like, this is where it falls apart for me. I think they'll actually have a underrated and very solid starting five, but the issue is the bench has to play at some point, and I don't think looking up and down, there's just no real talent coming off the bench.
And here's another thing. You have to have leadership in your locker room. You have to have leadership on the sidelines, and you have to have leadership on the floor. Who are their leaders? Who's the leaders on that team? LaMelo's not a leader. Miller's not a leader. He's talented, but he's not a leader. Certainly the guy that we don't want to mention his name, he's not a leader. So I do think it's also a team that has young talent, but they have no leadership. And I think that's a missing element. And that's one of the things that kind of stumps them and makes them underachieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I will give credit. They did bring in Taj Gibson, but there's only so much work that, Taj can do.
Did they bring in Taj Gibson to be like their version of Udonis Haslem? You know what I mean? Yeah. Is he actually going to play, or is he just going to be like in warm-ups and never play?
I think, he's just going to be in warm-ups. I don't see him getting any minutes at all.
Exactly.
And of course, the last team, I think we can easily agree on this one. Wizards, I think they'll be the front runners in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. This genuinely just might be the worst team in basketball this year.
This might be the Jordan Poole Scorched Earth Tour. He's coming back. He's coming for everybody. I'm kidding. Although I might jinx myself and end up having Jordan Poole on my fantasy team again. So, funny story. Now we all played in the fantasy league, and here's the crazy part. I got late to the draft. I was late to the draft. So by the time I got there, my first two players had been picked. And one of those players was Jordan Poole. The other one was DeMar DeRozan. And I was like, I thought the computer was supposed to be smarter than that. Like, God damn, like everybody else had at least one superstar. I don't know. I don't know what the computer just killed me. Like, really? The first guy you took was Poole? Wow.
I really had some hopes for Jordan Poole. I thought he was going to give me like 20, 25 last year on like the most horrendous shooting that you will ever see. Like, it was going to be the ugliest 20, 25 a game, but he really managed to just come nowhere near anybody's expectations.
He just flamed out. He literally flamed out. And I don't know what this means. I guess in the bigger picture, not much, but the best player on that team, it wasn't Jordan Poole, it was Kyle Kuzma. And that's not saying a lot because the bar is set really low when you're the best player on a team that won 15 games.
And amid those offensive struggles, they brought in Jonas Valanciunas, which that'll help their offense. And then they brought in Alex Sarr, which won't help their offense. I think that'll help their defense quite a bit. I do believe in Alex Sarr's defensive potential. But, we all watch Summer League. And once again, I don't really pay attention to the stats. To me, it's just, how are you getting buckets? And this man just wasn't. And it's not because he was getting wide open shots and missing them. He just flat out, anytime he tried to create anything for himself, wasn't creating any space. And he was not he wasn't taking putbacks up strong. He wasn't really great finessing putbacks either. So we have him just try to go straight up with these putbacks into two people. And of course, that's going to get blocked every time. So
he looked really, really soft in the Summer League. And the numbers don't have to wow you in summer leagues, but you got to be able to show me something. I looked at Alex Sarr, and what I saw, and I watched two of his games, was the speed of the NBA game. And mind you, this was summer league. The speed of the game was too fast for him. The physicality of the game was too much for him. He's going to have to get in the weight room, and I think he's going to have to stop. He's one thing he's doing wrong on offense is he's playing too fast. He's trying to make quick moves, and you need to be more patient. He needs to be less Amari Stoudemire and try to be more like Tim Duncan and be a little bit more deliberate, and not try to force offense. Like you said, you made a great point. I think Alex Sarr could average a low double-double. He could let's say he gives you 12 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 or 5 blocks, because I think he could be a terrific weak side defender automatically. The question is, can he buy into that in year one and just try to springboard off of that going into year two? Because I do think he has talent, Brett, but I'm with you. I think his natural gift is he could be a very good defender right off the bat. He is going to struggle offensively because I just think he's got to get into his man body and get some strength, because right now he looks softer than DeAndre Ayton, and that's really soft.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I figure last topic before we get out of here, Mo, we all saw it. Cleveland Cavaliers decided to lock up the rest of their core. Jarrett Allen, 3 years, $91 million. I'll let you go first on this one. What do you think of the Jarrett Allen extension?
Look, I'm a Jarrett Allen fan. I think you're a fan of Jarrett Allen too. But if I'm a Cavs fan, even though he's a good player, I think you have to make a decision. I don't think your team can make a deep run with your core, this core that they just had to keep together, because Mobley doesn't shoot in range. He takes a lot of shots from 15 to 18 feet, but he didn't hit them with any consistency. Allen is a zero range player. Everything he does is in the restricted area, and he's very good at it, But when you have a center that can only score in the restricted area, it allows teams to hedge the paint, and it cuts off driving lanes because he's not going anywhere. He's going to drift out to the paint. And if you run a pick and roll with him, you're going to go through that because he can't shoot. I don't know what Cleveland is doing. I think their mindset, Brett, was we're going to keep our core. We're not going to lose any of our core guys. I got no problem with that. But if they keep that core together and that's going to be the roster going forward and they don't really make a big move, you will get the same results, or maybe not. You're going to end up playing a team like Orlando again, and the only difference is, are they going to beat you in 7, or are you going to beat them again in 7? But you're going to lose in the second round at best. At best, you're going to lose in the second round. The Cleveland Cavaliers are not title contenders. They're playoff contenders, and that's a big difference. What they did was retain their players. What they didn't do, they didn't get any better. And I don't think, even though they both are talented, Mitchell's much more talented, the backcourt of Mitchell and Garland don't go together. If you want to really compliment Donovan Mitchell and get the most out of him and set him up for success, one, we all recognize Donovan Mitchell is a ball-dominant player who can actually create for others. If you want to max out what he can do, though, he doesn't need a Darius Garland. What he needs is he needs a running mate in the backcourt who's a 3-and-D guy. He needs a lockdown guy starting next to him who's athletic and can knock down open looks. That's what he needs. Darius Garland needs to go somewhere else where he can play faster and play with more space. But the two of them together, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The same way Allen and Mobley don't work. So I'm not going to tell Cleveland they're going to have a bad season. But if I'm a season ticket holder and I can look into the future and go, we're going to have the exact same season we had last year, that's not a reason to get excited.
It's funny because could you imagine how much better this team would be if they were the ones that swapped, got Alex Caruso, and they ran like a Donovan Mitchell, Alex Caruso backcourt? That would have been perfect. But I agree. I think Cleveland's selling themselves on hope, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to look at one number, the one number that's important to them that makes them think that this Allen Mobley backcourt can work. 37. The percent that Evan Mobley shot from 3 last year, I think they're going to ignore the context that he was taking a little over 1 per game.
Right.
So could this duo work? Sure. But that is banking on simple. Evan Mobley's 3-pointer increasing in volume without a drop-off in efficiency. Okay, you can hit 1 a game. If I'm a defense, if you're hitting 1 a game, I don't really care. I'm not going to go out there and chase you out there if you're just shooting 1 a game. That doesn't bother me. Can Evan Mobley expand his game so he's all of a sudden hitting 3 or 4 a game at 37%? I think that's what Cleveland had to ask themselves in order to figure out if this is going to work or not. And I think the answer is unfortunately no. I don't think he'll ever be a high-volume 3-point shooter.
Right. And then look at a guy like Caris LeVert. We talk about guys that are microwave scorers. They go, his highs are really high. Caris LeVert can drop a 30 piece on you on a given night. He can also turn around and for the next 4 games total score 30 points. And that's Caris LeVert throughout his career. He doesn't have the only thing consistent about Caris LeVert is he's inconsistent. I just think rather than worry about keeping your players, your first job as a front office is to find ways to make your team better. Your first job as a front office is to say, we think Donovan Mitchell is our centerpiece. We think he's the guy. Whether you and I agree with that or not is irrelevant, but if you think he's the guy, then you put people around him that complement his skill set. I think Evan Mobley complements his skill set. I think Jarrett Allen complements his skill set. But the two of them together do not complement his skill set. Darius Garland doesn't complement his skill set. Donovan Mitchell, he needs shooters around him. And if you're going to have a big, if you're going to play a 4-5, one of those two, Brett, you pointed out, they have to be able to shoot the 3 with consistency, but they also have to be a guy that puts up 4 or 5 threes a game and shoots it with consistency. And the way they're constructed right now, they don't have that. They literally don't have that. They went to a 7-game series versus an Orlando Magic team who's one of the worst offenses in the NBA, and it was a nip and tuck battle. Orlando did something by going out and get KCP. They got even better on defense, and they got a shooter who will allow them to have more spacing on offense. Cleveland brought back the same exact roster. Maybe they're thinking we'll have the same exact results. We'll win a first round series, and who knows in the second round. I miss the days when organizations were more aggressive. And right now, I think a lot of the things that they're doing, it's all about doing just enough rather than really going all out. So they signed all these guys, but you're looking at the way it works under the second apron. They're still doing those kind of safe moves. If you're a Cavaliers fan, you're happy because you kept Donovan Mitchell. But if you're bringing back that core, Brett, do you really look at them and go, if they get another matchup in the second round, they could go to the conference finals? I don't see that.
It would take them running into a really injury depleted team for me to go, yeah, Cavs are going to the conference finals, baby. Like they would have to run into the Knicks, after Tibbs runs everybody into the ground. And even at that point, I think even just Jalen Brunson and 75% of Mikal Bridges on offense is probably enough to overcome the Cavs' entire offensive attack.
You know what? The funny thing is, they could use a Bridges. They could use Bridges. Bridges is what Donovan Mitchell needs in his life. He needs Bridges. He needs Bridges. That's what they need. They need a guy that can go out and do some of the dirty work, but still turn around and give you 18 or 20 on a given night. And I think they thought Max Strus was that guy, and they found out the hard way, the same way Miami found out the second year when he came back. Max Strus is more of a rotation piece. He is not a star in the making, and he struggled to be a consistent starter. I just think that Cleveland, I wish their front office was just more aggressive going forward.
Oh, absolutely. And that was all the topics that I had for today, Mo. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, always a great time chopping up hoops with you. This is the first time we went live on TikTok. I apologize, everybody. You can see my beautiful, beautiful girls out there right now. You cannot see me, which means you're getting a better deal. And Brett is live on TikTok, so we appreciate everybody that came out to check out the N1 podcast. Make sure you guys check out the N1 Discord, the N1 Facebook page, and all the other great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. When I say we appreciate you guys, it's because we do. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, everybody that tuned in. We definitely appreciate all of you, and I hope that you guys have yourselves a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful day.